Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Cycles weekly YouTube column. It is great, as always, to be with you all. This is Gianni Poce, and I'm joined this week by Raymond Merriman. Hi, Ray. How you doing?
Just fine, Johnny. Good to see you again.
Good. Likewise. It was quite a week that we had in the last few days. We called it the week of the conjunctions because we had a new moon in Pisces. We had Mercury conjunct Saturn. We had a Venus-Mars conjunction. And then we are coming up on a Sun-Jupiter conjunction and the second and final passage of Venus conjunct Mars as well. So what are your thoughts on the aspects that we had this past week, Ray?
Well, as you mentioned, they're very powerful, and we had some big moves in various markets like crude oil and gold. But what I want to bring up with that's I think so important to keep in mind in terms of current events is as the Mars and Venus move into Aquarius on Sunday, they're going to conjunct President Zelensky's chart. He's an early Aquarius. His Venus is 2 degrees, his Sun is 5 degrees. So when a Sun is hitting your Venus and Mars, and Venus is hitting it too, this is highlighted for him. This is a make it or break it time. He is a hero to many people. He's shown bravery and courage. He's not going to back down. And it's going to be interesting to see if this war changes, maybe in his favor. It's a conjunction. You don't know if it's going to be in his favor or not. It's just going to be a turn of importance, and it's going to highlight him personally.
Well, what's especially fascinating about that, Ray, is that the two planets involved are Venus and Mars. Venus, the planet of, compromise and agreements, and Mars, the planet of war. So
that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah.
We're hoping for the compromise, the compromise of the tension so they can overcome this war for a while. That would be the best solution, I think, possible, and would really reflect well on him and his country if that happens.
Indeed. Well, let's go ahead and look at some charts here so we can see what's going on, or what happened rather, this last week. Let's start off with the Dow Jones Industrials. Can you see my chart, Ray?
I see it.
Okay, so we see how the Dow, we started off the week on a fairly strong note. We rallied to a new high post the cycle low of February 24th, but then we basically hit a high right around the time we had the Venus and Pluto conjunction and Mars and Pluto conjunction. We pulled back, but on Friday, we caught a little bit of a bid and closed off the lows, but we saw a lot more weakness in overseas markets, especially in Germany and in the Netherlands. Those pulled back pretty sharply. And Ray, you had mentioned that even the Hang Seng index pulled back and is now near its COVID lows again.
Is given up 100% of his gains in the Hang Seng. Then the AEX in the Netherlands is now down 23.5% from its all-time high recently. The NASDAQ is almost, not the NASDAQ, the DAX, the German DAX is down 19.6%, almost 20% from its high. All of these in the last couple of weeks, most of it happened. So it's pretty dramatic week last week.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we do know that the market that stole the headlines was crude oil. Crude oil rallied to its highest level since September 2008. Prices rallied as high as 116.57, which was actually slightly above the upside objective that we provided in our MMA monthly cycles report. We said that we had an upside target in the 105, 115 area. So we slightly exceeded that, which is good to see. We would call that a happy problem from the long side. But it looks like momentum is still pretty strong. And, it probably is going to lead to a continuation of inflationary pressures, at least likely until we have that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in April.
We're getting a little view of that even right now. As you mentioned, we got Sun conjunct Saturn this weekend. Next week is Sun conjunct Neptune. So it's the translation. The Sun is translating the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. So we're getting a leg of that now.
Yeah, the Sun-Jupiter conjunction on Saturday. That's correct. Yep. And then we also had huge moves in grain markets. Wheat rallied to its highest level since March 2008 as well. And actually, they had to hit the circuit breakers on this market pretty much every day this last week. And it was very powerful rally. And, a lot of this has to do with the geopolitics. But I think a big theme here as well, Ray, is the Uranus transit through Taurus. We know the boom-bust cycle that tends to unfold in the market that is ruled by the sign that Uranus transits.
Absolutely. We mentioned that in the forecast 2020 and 2021 books that wheat was a prime candidate of all the grains. We thought wheat would be the most outstanding performer. And now it's finally living up to our hype. It's fulfilling our objectives now. It took longer than the other ones, but now it's catching up and going ahead of them.
Yeah, take a look at this weekly chart. You see here that, we are right back close to all-time high territory. So it is very bullish. I hope that everyone has their pantries stocked of pasta.
Right.
I want to also look at a chart of corn very briefly, and then we can look at a couple cryptocurrencies. Corn had a very bullish week too. Just wanted to highlight that as well because we have several traders that subscribe to our reports that trade corn a lot. We have some farmers that work with us as well, and I know these are important markets for them. So it's looking pretty bullish here too. But with the Venus Mars conjunction coming up, we know that Venus rules grains, so we can't rule out the possibility of a reversal at some point in the next week or two.
Correct. You might also want to take a look at currencies before we're done.
You want to look at the euro?
Yeah, I'd like to look at the euro. I think it's very important what's going on with the euro right now.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the European markets, the equity markets collapsing, and it looks like capital is just fleeing the eurozone for that matter. We have the euro currency. I think it fell to its lowest level since. Let's actually look at a monthly chart here.
It would be May of 2020. It looked like it was back down that area.
Yep, and it's making lower lows and lower highs. So.
And again, that's Venus, Mars, and Pluto. Venus is currencies, Pluto is debt. Well, Venus is credit, Pluto is debt. And here they are coming together in the last degrees of Capricorn, and they're going to switch. So we're very attuned right now. We're very aware that something could change in the next week, and we want to be ready for that.
Not to mention, looking a couple weeks ahead, we have the square aspects with Venus and Mars with Uranus. And that's going to be not this week, I think 2 weekends from this upcoming weekend. And we know that Venus rules currencies, but Uranus has a tendency to rule breaks of support or resistance. Yeah.
We look for either total breakdown or reversal, and maybe both in within a week of each other. You might have a big break and then a reversal. It's hard to predict when Uranus is there if it's going to be reversal or going to be a breakout. In many cases, like I say, it's both.
Indeed. I want to look at Bitcoin real quick, and then we actually have a question from a viewer that I want to get to in just a moment. Bitcoin made another lower high this past week, reversed the day before Venus made that conjunction with Pluto. And, since this is technically a currency, we look toward to Venus as being a guiding planet, so to speak, in this market. But any comments or thoughts on Bitcoin, Ray? Because it's looking pretty much.
Well, I know many astrologers, financial astrologers, like to look at Uranus, and as you mentioned, currencies of all kinds are Venus and Taurus. But the research that you kind of inspired me to look at, and I've done it with Neptune. Neptune's been very prominent with the major lows and highs in Bitcoin. We got a major Neptune aspect developing. Not only Jupiter conjunct Neptune, but the Sun, as I mentioned, is making the translation as it conjuncts Jupiter and then it conjuncts Neptune between March 6th and I think it's the 13th. So this is an interesting time for Bitcoin too. There could be another reversal.
Indeed. We'll have to keep an eye on that very closely. So we also have to address precious metals, because the question we had from a viewer was, and it was as follows: is the scenario of a speculative frenzy unfolding in gold as Jupiter will be in Pisces conjoining Neptune in April? So let me pull up the gold chart. And Ray, do you have any comments on that?
Yes. Jupiter conjunct Neptune is a speculative frenzy. And again, as I mentioned, we're getting the first leg of that going on right now with the Sun coming to Jupiter and Neptune between March 6th and 13th. And we are getting a speculative frenzy in the gold market. And I think also currency markets, but the speculative frenzy in currency market is more hysteria, it's more panic. Yeah. The speculative frenzy, which is more buying, is happening in the metals. And it's kind of interesting that you see gold running up so strongly while the euro is running down. That's not going to last forever, folks. So this is a very important window of opportunity you have, I think, regarding gold relative to currencies.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, Ray, that's all the time we have to analyze and look at markets. But for the week ahead, the main aspect that we have is the Venus-Mars conjunction taking place on Sunday, March 6th. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And as you mentioned, the conjunction with President Zelensky's son. So a couple other announcements. First and foremost, would encourage you all to check out www.mmacycles.com. We have a variety of subscription products there. We cover many markets that would be of interest to you, I think. We also have an MMA monthly addendum report that's going to be published by Puyan Zulfargania. He is an MMTA student. That's going to come out the evening of March 7th. So have a look at that. Would strongly encourage you to check that out. We also have the MMA monthly cycles report that's going to be published on March 14th and 15th. That is our flagship report, so to speak. We cover many markets of interest in there as well. And last and certainly not least, we have the Chinese webinar for the Chinese markets, the China webinar, where Ray will be giving an update on the Chinese stock market as well as gold and crude oil. So Ray, anything else that you want to share with readers before we call it a week?
I think you cover everything. Just to mention that Chinese webinar for the Chinese markets, you are invited to come to it. You should know that it will be translated into Chinese. It'll be about 2.5 hours long, but translation takes place. But you're welcome to sign up for that too on our website, March 18th.
March 18th in the U.S. and March 19th in China.
Correct. Yes.
All
Johnny.
right. Well, thanks again, Ray, and we will be back next week with another update for you. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
All righty.